Many men are living their lives with a loser's limp. You've seen it happen in baseball games when the outfielder doesn't catch the ball and falls to the ground, and he gets up with a limp, implying something went wrong that excuses me from not making the catch. The loser's limp is an excuse for failure. It's a way of passing the blame to something or someone else for what the outfielder failed to do. In this opening session of our series, No More Excuses, we want to give men the understanding that God does not want us to make excuses for the failures in our lives. He wants us to take responsibility and to take ownership, and then to come out of that limp and take full strength and full stride for turning things around in our lives and in the lives of those that we affect individually and even culturally. And that means that we can no longer hide behind the past. We can no longer let yesterday define us. I don't care where you are in your journey, and all of us as men are in a journey. We want to get rid of this limp. We want to stand tall and walk strong. No more living in the rearview mirror of yesterday and hiding there, rather than living in the windshield of tomorrow and running there. That's why I'm so enthralled with the story of Joseph. Beginning in Genesis chapter 37, all the way to the 50th chapter, Joseph's story is told, and he didn't have a great beginning. Here's a young man who had every reason as a teenager to look back on his upbringing and be resentful, hateful, to be revengeful, and to give an excuse of why he couldn't make it. He could let his past be the reason for a failed present and a dim future. But he was not going to be held hostage to the past for one simple reason: that as he moved along the journey of life, there is a phrase repeated over and over again. And it simply said, but the Lord was with Joseph. That because God entered into his environment, in spite of the past, the pain, the bad examples, the sibling rivalry, that even though his yesterday was not one to be proud of, that God would intervene in the affairs of his life, and God would turn that thing around. And the journey became one of ups and downs. It wasn't smooth sailing, but God opened up a windshield that he could look through, because he was not to be held hostage to the past. In fact, in the New Testament, when Stephen is talking about Israel's history, he talks about Joseph's success because God was with him. We men need God with us. We need God to deliver us from yesterday, because too many of us are chained to yesterday. An elephant performs in a circus. But the reason it's a performance creature is because when it was a baby, a chain was put around its leg. And it was taught early on that when you feel the chain pegged into the ground by a stake, you don't move until you're given permission to do so. So when that elephant becomes fully grown, it's only good for performance, because it was trained early on in the past to feel the stake and the chain even when it's no longer there. And as a result, it performs in the circus. It does good. People applaud, but it's not living up to its full potential. That is, unless it goes on a rampage. Far too many men are like that elephant. Something chained them in the past. Maybe it was a sin. Maybe it was a bad dad. Maybe it was a bad environment. Maybe it was a gang connection. Maybe it was negative influences. Maybe it was a bad coach. Maybe it was an insensitive teacher. It could be any number of things that has held this man hostage to yesterday, giving him his limp, his excuse. But when the Lord is with you, it changes the power of yesterday. It doesn't make yesterday disappear, but it makes the impact of yesterday no longer consequential. God wants to deliver you and me and us as men from the hostage taking that the enemy has done in our lives so that we're able to blaze into our future, getting rid of the limp and the excuse and not being held hostage to the past. Through the series of Joseph's life, because God was with him, he overrode the slavery. He gave him a job, and because he was with him, he rose in Potiphar's house. But even then, he was illegitimately accused of rape and sent to jail. But guess what it says? In jail, God was with him, and he became the chief leader in prison until the time when Pharaoh had a dream and it was remembered he was the dream interpreter. He came and interpreted Pharaoh's dream, and he went from the jailhouse to the penthouse. He is now the second in charge in Egypt. Why? Because God was with him. What I'm trying to say, men, is God can take your yesterday and turn it into an awesome tomorrow. But guess what? Yesterday shows back up because his brothers come due to starvation to seek help from Egypt for food, not knowing that their brother Joseph is now in charge. Joseph sees his brothers. He's drawn to tears because he remembers yesterday. But he had to do something more men need to learn to do. He had to forgive. He had to forgive yesterday. Forgiving does not mean you don't remember it happened. It means you're no longer seeking revenge because it happened. You're no longer holding the person hostage because you see that God is so good at what he does. If he's with you, he can take the mess of yesterday and turn it into the miracle of tomorrow. He can take the pain of the past and turn it into the productivity of the future. He can take the limp and give you and me life. When he sees his brothers through a series of events, he tells them something that would forever change the status quo. He says, come near to me. He is embracing the past because he saw God turn it into something that has given him a pleasurable future. If God can do that with Joseph, he can do that with you, he can do that with me. I know that yesterday may have hurt you. Maybe it was a racial situation. You can't forgive that race, that person who said that thing or did that thing. Maybe it was another man in your life who spoke down to you or who led you into bad things. I don't know what it was, but Joseph said, come near to me, because God used you. In fact, some of the greatest verses in the Bible come at the end of Joseph's story, because in chapter 50, he says, you meant it for evil, verse 20, against me, but God meant it for good to bring me to this place. You see, God can stir things up that don't look good and still cook something up that tastes great. Have you ever been to a real pizzeria and watched how they take that pizza? They take the dough and they kind of abuse it. You know, they take it and they slam it down. Take a rolling pin and roll over it, flatten it out. But wait a minute. I want the cheese. I want the pepperoni. I want all the good stuff. But they don't give you the good stuff, including the sauce, until the dough has been made ready to receive it. Then they put it in the fire, bring it out, and it's good. Well, you know what? Your past may have thrown you down, may have rolled you over, and may have heated you up. But when God gets finished doing what he wants to do in your life and puts the cheese on it and the pepperoni on it and pours the sauce on it, you're going to wind up coming out of that thing good. Because God is the miracle working God. And you'll be able to say, like Joseph, when he named his son, God has helped me to forget. Oh, he remembered what happened. He was no longer controlled by what happened. So let's get rid of the limp. Let's stand up straight. Let's act like men. Don't hold on to the past, because God is holding on to you.